We're heading into week 12. We're about to set those lineups. And one thing every fantasy gamer has to do one time or another is start a player they don't want to start due to attrition, due to injuries, or whatever's happening. They got to start a rando at their flex and hope for the best. I'm here for you in that situation right now. I'm covering 13 players that are sneaky starts, and by doing so, I'm going game by game, just looking at the matchup, the over-unders, and trying to predict that rando player that could bust on us. If you have a rando player that you're starting this week, drop it in the comments below. Also, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy content like this. But we're going to get it started here. And our first game we're going to cover is the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. 40.5 over, under. We're going to be looking at the wide receivers here, and I'm going to be pinpointing Jahan Dotson, wide receiver of the Commanders. Atlanta's allowing 280 passing yards per game. Dotson was very productive earlier this season. Maybe some of those targets can trickle to him, maybe some red zone looks. But with Atlanta allowing so much in the passing game, there's some odds that some targets, some production could go to Dotson. Moving on to our next contest that we're going to be touching here is Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. 43.5 over under here. Predicted to be a lower scoring game, but remember, a lot of unders have been hitting this year, so a lot of these projected point totals are going to be on the lower end. I'm still going to be at the wide receiver position here for the Baltimore Ravens, and here I'm going to be looking at Demarcus Robinson. 13 targets in his last two games, 153 air yards in his last two games, which led to him scoring 12 points per game in those two games. He's been productive. Lamar Jackson has been targeting him, and this is going to lead to some more production down the line. Next game we're going to cover is Chicago Bears at the New York Jets. 38.5 over under, a really low projected point total here. And we're going to go back to that Elijah Moore the wide receiver from the New York Jets. Zach Wilson's gone. He's benched, at least for this week. Moore's getting more opportunities in the slot, which is where he belongs. Could be getting more targets, especially from the short to intermediate range of the field. I look for him to get some more workload this week. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tennessee Titans. 43.5 over under, and we really know where the ball's going with both teams here. We know the Bengals funnel it to one running back. We know their receivers. Tennessee Titans are pretty similar, but one guy fantasy gamers aren't really starting who is getting targets is Robert Woods. 14 targets in his last two games, a 22% target share, a 91.4% route participation rate. The Bengals are stiff against the pass, with 205 yards allowed per game. With that being said, it doesn't mean Woods is going to bomb on us. He might get some short to intermediate targets with them just trying to dish it out, with them just trying to take the easy pass, and that could allow him to get some opportunities in this game. Moving on to our next contest. This one is an ugly one, and it was really hard to pick a player here, but we're looking at the Denver Broncos at the Carolina Panthers. 36 over under here, low projected point total. This is a dog face game. Terrace Marshall of the Carolina Panthers is a guy we want to keep an eye on. 131 air yards in his last two games. Sam Darnold has his history of slinging it deep. Remember Robbie Anderson back in the day at the New York Jets with him? The deep air yards can come from Sam Darnold. That's what Marshall's good at. Marshall's a deep threat. This is a total gamble. So if you want to gamble on your flex, this could be a player to do it with, but it's very dicey. Another dicey situation is the Houston Texans at the Miami Dolphins. 47 over under, higher implied point total because Miami Dolphins make the money printer go burr here. But we're going to look at the Houston Texans here because there's a lot of ambiguity with this team. And we're going to look at Chris Moore, the wide receiver, forgotten or no-name wide receiver, 117 air yards in his last two games. 13 targets in his last two games, 62% route participation rate during that time with an 18.8% target share. Volumes coming his way. That could lead to a touchdown, a long score, a long play. Who knows? But you want to chase workload. Next game we're looking at here is Tampa Bay at the Cleveland Browns. We got a 42 over under. Lower implied point total, and I can see why. The guy I'm chasing here is on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. and it's Julio Jones. And you do not think of Julio Jones anymore, but here's why this week it could be in favor for you. The Browns are strong against the run and ranked 20th against the pass, which means that creates a pass funnel, which means if you're going to play against the Browns, you may want to test them out against the pass. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are obvious plays. Next one down the line, Julio Jones. Julio Jones, 5 targets in his last game, coming off a bye week, going to be a little bit fresher. Might get some ancillary targets in this situation. Lower over under, but Tampa Bay can't sit on the run either, so they're going to have to sling it a little bit. Next game we're looking at is the Chargers at the Arizona Cardinals. 48 over under, higher scoring implied point total. And we're going to look at Greg Dortch, wide receiver of the Cardinals. Rondale Moore's out. Dortch should be looking at the short to intermediate targets here. He saw 10 targets last week. Should see some of those quick little dump offs. However, he's dealing with a thumb injury and might not play. That being said, you want to pay attention to the injury report. Going to the next game here, we got the Raiders at the Seattle Seahawks. 47.5 over under. And with the Raiders, we tend to go with Mac Hollins because he's being overshadowed by Devontae Adams. He really would be overshadowed by just about any stud receiver. 9 targets in his last game, 19 over his last 3 games. Been getting workload. Been kind of consistent with the workload. Not a trendy start, but he's getting work, which is what you want to chase. Next one we're going to talk about here, LA Rams at the Kansas City Chiefs. 42 over under, lower implied point total for these two teams. I think we're going to hit the over here if you want to bet on that, but that is not financial advice. Player I'm going with here is a rookie, one of my favorites, Sky Moore of the Chiefs. 6 targets last week on 16 routes. Second round rookie. Kadarius Toney out. Mecole Hardman on IR. Juju's probable. So there's some opportunity for him to get some run here. Juju's probable. Some injuries here. We might see him get some targets again this week. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints at the San Francisco 49ers. 43 over under, another low implied point total. That is the theme of 2022. So look for some of these to hit the over. Look for some of these to be lower scoring games. For the 49ers, we're looking at Elijah Mitchell. Typical boom-bust play here because he's sharing the backfield with Christian McCaffrey. However, we're close to a 50-50 split in touches between the two. He had 9 last week, and McCaffrey had 14. So they're trying to even it out. New Orleans is allowing 132 rushing yards per game, so there could be opportunities here for Mitchell. Again, boom-bust play to look at. Moving down to the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles, our Sunday night game. 46.5 over under. Sadly, that's one of the highest of the slate this week. And we're going to be looking at Randall Cobb of the Packers. 6 targets last game with him coming back. Eagles are tough against the pass, so maybe those short to intermediate depth of targets can really help them out and allow them to move the ball, which means they'll be targeting Cobb at that point, not the deep ball. So maybe Cobb can get a little bit of extra ancillary targets in this game. Just trying to think outside the box here with the Eagles clamping it down in the passing game. Last game we're going to be covering today, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts. Monday night game here. 39 over under, low implied point total, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the truth here. Could hit the over, could be an ugly one, who knows? But from a fantasy perspective, I'm looking at Alec Pierce, wide receiver from the Colts here. 77.3 route participation rate in his last 2 games, 10 targets in his last 2 games, and 125 air yards. Pittsburgh is allowing 263 passing yards per game as well, so there are some opportunities for the Colts to exploit their defense. Alec Pierce is getting enough run to make something happen. Air yards count once they're converted, so there could be a chance that he goes boom for you in your lineup. But those are the players that are sneaky starts for this week. Let me know who's your sneaky start for the week, who you're putting in your lineups down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'm only going to help you going forward with waiver wire pickups, stash plays, trade advice, and everything else. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.